Ryan Carter stood at the edge of the Grand Hall, watching as 200 alien species shifted nervously in their seats. The air felt heavy inside the Galactic Confederation headquarters on Centauri Prime. Ryan had been a diplomat for 8 years, but he had never seen the council chamber this tense. Today, humans were leaving the Galactic Confederation. Ryan checked his communication device one more time. His orders from Admiral Grant were clear. Observe everything, record what he could, and report back. As the lowest-ranking human diplomat present, no one would pay much attention to him. The human ambassador approaches, announced the chamber's DO, AI in 15 different languages. The massive doors slid open. Eleanor Wells walked in with perfect posture, her gray suit crisp and formal. 6 other human diplomats followed her. Their faces showed no emotion, just like they had practiced. The oldest member of the council, a tall, blue-skinned Jula named Carex, spoke first. Ambassador Wells, the council recognizes Earth and its colonies. We understand you have an announcement. Eleanor nodded. She looked around the room slowly, making eye contact with representatives from the most powerful species. Ryan knew this was deliberate. Even now, leaving the Confederation, she wanted them to remember human confidence. For 120 years, humanity has been part of this confederation, Eleanor began, her voice clear and strong. We have traded, shared knowledge, fought common enemies, and built what we thought was mutual trust. Several aliens shifted in discomfort. The large insect-like cricks clicked their mandibles. The jellyfish-shaped Honorans pulsed bright colors. Ryan noticed everything. Today, by unanimous vote of Earth's Global Council and all 47 human colonies, we formally withdraw from the Galactic Confederation, effective immediately. The chamber erupted. Some species shouted questions. Others buzzed, clicked, or flashed lights in their forms of communication. The council leader banged a metal rod against the floor 3 times, calling for order. Humans have always been unpredictable, said Carex, trying to sound calm. But this decision seems extreme. What grievance drives this action? Eleanor's face remained neutral. No grievance we wish to discuss here. Humanity has simply decided to find our own path forward. All human military ships have already withdrawn from Confederation space. Our trading posts are being closed. Our diplomats and citizens have been called home. A red-scaled Volari named Krexnar stood up. This is most unusual, Ambassador. Some might even say suspicious. Humans have always pushed for greater integration in the Confederation. Now you suddenly leave? Ryan watched Eleanor carefully. She showed no reaction to the accusation. But Ryan knew the Volari had never liked humans. They had been in space for thousands of years before Earth's first starship, and they never let humans forget it. Our reasons are our own, Eleanor replied. We wish the Confederation peace and prosperity. She placed a small metal cube on the central table. It was the official record of human membership, now deactivated. The symbolism was clear to everyone. That's it? Asked a small, furry Pelin from the Outer Rim worlds. You offer no explanation? Humans just leave? Yes, said Eleanor simply. We just leave. Ryan watched the reactions carefully. Most species showed shock or confusion, but some, like the Volari delegation, seemed almost happy. He activated the small recording device in his pocket. Carex sighed deeply. Very well. The Confederation acknowledges humanity's withdrawal. As per our laws, all former agreements are now void. Human ships will have standard alien access to trade routes, no more and no less. Understood, said Eleanor. She bowed slightly, a human gesture that had become common in diplomatic circles. Goodbye. With that, she turned and walked out. The other human diplomats followed her. Ryan waited a moment, then slipped out through a side door as the chamber fell into loud debate. In the private hallway outside, Ryan hurried to catch up with the delegation. Eleanor was already entering coordinates into her communication device. Ambassador Wells, Ryan said, approaching her. The Admiral wants to know how it went. Eleanor looked up. For the first time, she showed a small smile. Exactly as expected, Ryan. Some were shocked, some relieved. Did you get what we needed? Ryan nodded. The Valeri delegation was practically celebrating when they thought no humans were watching. Good work, she said. Get that recording to Admiral Grant immediately, then report to Evacuation Point C for your ride home. Yes, Ambassador. Ryan hesitated. Do you really think this will work? Eleanor's eyes hardened. It has to. For 120 years, we've been treated like clever children. They take our innovations, block our advancement, and keep us contained. It's time they learn what happens when humans actually walk away. The rest of the human delegation had already moved ahead toward their ship. Eleanor put a hand on Ryan's shoulder. Remember, most humans don't know the real plan. To everyone else, this is a protest move because the Confederation denied us another colony world. Only those with clearance know the truth. Ryan nodded. I understand. How long do you think it will take? Admiral Grant believes 6 months, Eleanor said quietly. 6 months before the Confederation realizes just how much they depended on us. Then we return, but on our terms. A voice called from ahead. Ambassador, the ship is ready. Eleanor straightened her suit. Good luck, Ryan. See you back on Earth. As she walked away, Ryan felt a strange mix of pride and worry. Humanity was taking a huge risk. They were proving a point by walking away from the greatest alliance of civilizations in known space. Ryan slipped into a small monitoring room and connected his recording device to a secure terminal. The video would reach Admiral Grant within minutes through quantum channels that other species didn't know humans had perfected. On the recording, he could see the Valari ambassador Krexanar speaking quietly to 3 other species after most of the chamber had cleared. Finally, the alien was saying, his scales rippling with excitement. With humans gone, we can return to the natural order. Their constant questioning of tradition, their endless innovations. It was disturbing the balance of power. They were advancing too quickly, agreed a gray-skinned Tekken. Another century and they might have surpassed even the elder races. Well, now they've removed themselves, said Krexnar. A fortunate development for all of us. Ryan sent the recording, then deleted all traces from the terminal. As he headed toward his evacuation point, he passed large windows overlooking the spaceport. The main human diplomatic vessel was already lifting off. All across Centauri Prime, human ships were leaving. Stores were closing. A century of human presence was disappearing in a single day, and the galaxy held its breath, not yet understanding what it had just lost. 3 months had passed since the humans left the Galactic Confederation. Lisa Donovan stood at the viewport of Orion Station, watching as fewer ships arrived each day. Once the busiest trading hub in the sector, the station now felt half empty. Lisa was one of the few humans who had stayed behind. As an independent trader, she had built relationships with dozens of alien species over 15 years. When the call came for all humans to return to Earth space, she had ignored it. Her life was here, among the stars. Now she wondered if that had been a mistake. Attention all residents, the station AI announced overhead. Due to supply shortages, food rations will be reduced by another 10% starting tomorrow. Around her, aliens of various species grumbled or made their equivalent sounds of disappointment. A tall, thin Juraxian with pale blue skin approached her. Human Lisa, he said in the formal way of his people. Your prediction was correct. The situation grows worse. Lisa nodded to her old trading partner. Hello, Ven. I told you 3 weeks ago this would happen. When humans pulled their ships from the patrol routes, someone needed to replace them. The Confederation Council said the Valarian Tekken fleets would maintain security, Ven replied, his large eyes blinking slowly. Yet pirate attacks have increased by 300%. Lisa turned from the viewport to face him directly. The Valarian Tekken never cared about the outer trade routes. They protect their own shipping lanes and ignore the rest. As if to prove her point, the station shook slightly. The lights dimmed, then returned to normal. These power fluctuations had become common as maintenance systems failed without proper parts. I must go, Ven said nervously. I have heard rumors of fighting in the lower markets. Some traders are hoarding supplies. After he left, Lisa made her way to the central plaza of the station. Once filled with merchants from hundreds of worlds, now less than half the stalls were open. Those that remained had little to sell and high prices. The main view screen in the plaza showed a Centauri news broadcast. A purple-skinned commentator named Zixara was speaking. Completely natural adjustment period, the alien was saying smoothly. The human departure is a minor inconvenience at most. The Confederation existed for thousands of years before humans joined, and we will continue to thrive without them. Lisa snorted. The propaganda was getting more desperate each week. They're lying, you know. Lisa turned quickly. A man stood beside her, watching the screen. He looked human, with dark hair and eyes, but something about him seemed off. "Who are you?" Lisa asked cautiously. "You can call me Paul," he said. "Paul Wright, and like you, I chose to stay behind when the others left." Lisa studied him carefully. His clothes were standard trader attire, but too perfect, too new. His posture was too straight. "You're not a traitor," she said finally. Paul smiled slightly. "No, I'm not. But I am interested in what's happening here. The collapse of trade routes, the failing station systems, the rising tensions between species." "It's because the humans left," Lisa said, watching his reaction. "Yes," Paul agreed. "But why is that causing such problems? The Confederation claims humans were just one minor species among many. If that's true, why does everything fall apart without them?" Before Lisa could answer, shouting erupted across the plaza. Two alien merchants, a bulky Dravian and a tall Pellin, were arguing over a shipment of mechanical parts. "Those were promised to me," the Dravian roared, his thick hide flushing dark orange with anger. "I paid first," the furry Pellin countered, standing on his hind legs to appear taller. Station security officers rushed over, but they seemed reluctant to get involved. In the past, human mediators would have stepped in to resolve such disputes. Paul touched Lisa's arm. "Come with me. This isn't a conversation for public spaces." Something in his tone made Lisa follow him. They walked through less crowded corridors until they reached a small maintenance room. Paul checked that no one had followed them, then closed the door. "You've been documenting the changes, haven't you?" he asked directly. Lisa crossed her arms. "Maybe. What's it to you?" Instead of answering, Paul took out a small device and pressed it. A soft hum filled the room and the walls seemed to shimmer slightly. "Privacy field," he explained. "Now we can talk freely." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an official-looking badge. It bore the Earth government seal and identified him as Intelligence Division. "You're a spy," Lisa said flatly. "Intelligence operative," Paul corrected. "And I need your help." "Why would I help Earth? They abandoned us out here." Paul leaned against the wall. "Did they? Or is something else happening?" He touched the device, again, and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed trade routes throughout Confederation space, with red marks indicating pirate attacks and system failures. "Look at the pattern," Paul said. "These aren't random. The attacks target very specific technologies and resources, ones that humans used to provide." Lisa studied the map. "Someone's deliberately making things worse." "Exactly. They want to prove the Confederation doesn't need humans. But to do that, they first have to replace everything humans used to do." He pointed to several flashing points. "They're failing." "Who's they?" Lisa asked. "The elder races. Mainly the Volari, Tekken, and Zula. They've been running the Confederation for thousands of years." Paul's face grew serious. "They saw humans as a threat." Lisa remembered conversations she'd overheard before the withdrawal. Alien diplomats complaining about human aggression and destabilizing human innovation. So Earth pulled out to what? Teach them a lesson? Paul smiled. To show the galaxy what happens when humans aren't around to fix everyone's problems, and to gather evidence. He pointed to the recording device partly hidden in Lisa's jacket. "That's why your documentation is important. We need proof that certain species are deliberately sabotaging stations and trade routes." Lisa thought about the declining conditions, the food shortages, the rising tensions. People are suffering because of this plan. Some discomfort now to prevent something worse later, Paul said. We discovered the elder races were planning to restrict human expansion, possibly even roll back our colonies. So what do you want from me? Keep recording, especially anything involving Valari or Tekken officials. Paul handed her a small data chip. This has secure communication codes. Upload your evidence here. Lisa took the chip but didn't pocket it yet. And what happens after? What's the endgame? Humans. Return, but on our terms. No more being treated like clever children. Equal standing with the elder races. Paul's eyes were intense. But first, the galaxy needs to understand what they've lost. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the station. The privacy field flickered as the station's main systems diverted power. Another attack, Paul said grimly. Happening more frequently? Now. Lisa finally pocketed the data chip. I'll help, not for Earth but for the people stuck here. Paul nodded. That's good enough. He deactivated the privacy field. We should separate now. Too dangerous to be seen together. As they left the maintenance room, Lisa saw more security officers running toward the docking bays. Announcements warned of unauthorized ships attempting to board. The station that had once been the jewel of this sector was falling apart without human support. Lisa wondered how much worse things would get before they improved. The ripple effect of humanity's departure was becoming a tidal wave. Eric Martinez worked quickly, his fingers flying across the lab terminal. The research station orbiting Proxima Centauri had been his home for 5 years, but tonight would be his last here. He had 10 minutes at most before security discovered the locked door. Download complete, the computer announced. Eric pulled the data chip from the slot and slipped it into a hidden pocket. It contained 3 years of research that had been stolen from him twice before. A bang on the door made him jump. Dr. Martinez, open immediately. The voice belonged to Kral, the station's tech and security chief. Eric took a deep breath. The message from Admiral Grant had come just in time. For months, he had suspected his alien colleagues were sabotaging his work. Now he knew the truth was far worse. He pressed a small device on his wrist, activating the emergency beacon. Then he moved to the back wall and pulled away a ventilation panel he had loosened days ago. Final breach warning, human, Kral shouted. The door hissed as security overrides began working. Eric slipped into the ventilation shaft just as the door slid open. He heard Kral curse in his native language as security officers rushed into the empty lab. The narrow shaft was uncomfortable, but Eric had memorized the path to the emergency pods. As he crawled, his mind raced through everything he had discovered. His research into quantum communication should have revolutionized faster-than-light messaging. Instead, every breakthrough was mysteriously lost or corrupted. Equipment failed at critical moments. Data disappeared from secure servers. At first, he thought it was bad luck. Then he suspected sabotage from rival human scientists. Only yesterday, did he discover the truth when he hacked into his supervisor's private files? The Galactic Confederation had been systematically suppressing human innovations for decades. Eric reached the small chamber containing the emergency escape pods. He could hear alarms blaring throughout the station now. They knew he was escaping with the evidence. He climbed into the nearest pod and activated the launch sequence. As the computer counted down, he could see security officers rushing toward him through the transparent door. Launch, he commanded, overriding the final safety checks. The pod shot away from the station with a violent jerk. Eric was pressed into his seat as the small vessel accelerated to maximum speed. Behind him, the research station quickly shrank to a distant point of light. He checked the navigation system. The pod was on course to the coordinates Admiral Grant had sent, a human border fleet waiting just outside Confederation space. For the first time in hours, Eric allowed himself to relax slightly. He was safe, and more importantly, the evidence was safe. He inserted the data chip into the pod's computer and reviewed the files. There it was, proof that the elder races had been stealing human technology for over a century. His quantum communication breakthrough had already been secretly implemented by the Valari. who claimed it as their own invention. Other human innovations had been similarly taken or suppressed. Anytime humans solved a problem that had stumped the galaxy for millennia, the solution was buried or credited to another species. 6 hours later, Eric's pod was pulled into the docking bay of the UES Vigilant, the flagship of Admiral Grant's border fleet. As he stepped out, a group of officers waited for him. "Dr. Martinez," said a tall woman in a crisp uniform. "I'm Admiral Samantha Grant. Welcome aboard." Eric handed her the data chip immediately. "It's all here, Admiral. Everything you suspected, and more." She nodded, her expression serious. "Follow me. There are others you need to meet." They walked through the massive ship, passing hundreds of crew members preparing for what looked like battle stations. The tension in the air was thick. "How long has this been planned?" Eric asked as they entered a secure conference room. "Operation Walkaway? Nearly 15 years. Admiral Grant replied. "We needed to be certain before taking such a drastic step." Inside the conference room, Eric was surprised to see familiar faces. Ryan Carter, the diplomat from Centauri Prime, a woman he didn't recognize, but who wore the outfit of an independent trader, and on a large screen the face of Eleanor Wells, the ambassador who had delivered humanity's withdrawal notice. "Dr. Martinez has the final evidence we need," Admiral Grant announced. "The Volari and Tekkan have been systematically suppressing human innovation while stealing our technology." Ryan nodded grimly. "My recordings show they've been planning to restrict our colony expansion. They're afraid of how quickly we've advanced. The situation in Confederation space is deteriorating exactly as predicted," said Admiral Grant. She activated a holographic display showing the status of various sectors. Trade disruption is at 70%. Station systems are failing faster than they can be repaired. 3 minor species have already requested emergency assistance from Earth. The trader woman, Lisa, Eric learned, spoke up. "People are suffering. Out there. How much longer will this continue?" "Not much longer," Admiral Grant assured her. "The evidence you've all collected is compelling. Now we move to the next phase." She expanded the holographic display to show the position of human fleets throughout the galaxy. Eric gasped. Despite the public withdrawal, human ships had never gone far. They were positioned just beyond sensor range of major Confederation systems, watching and waiting. "All this time we never really left," Eric said in amazement. "That was the point," Eleanor Wells said from the screen. "We needed the galaxy to see what happens when humans truly walk away, but we would never abandon innocent people to chaos." Admiral Grant nodded. "The Volari and other elder races believed they controlled the Confederation through their ancient technologies and political alliances. They saw humans as upstarts who needed to be controlled." She zoomed in on Eric's research data. "What they didn't understand is that human innovation can't be suppressed forever. Dr. Martinez's quantum communication breakthrough is just one example of technology they tried to steal. I still don't understand why," Eric said. "Why not just work together? There's room for everyone to advance." "Fear," Ryan answered simply. "Humans went from primitive to spacefaring in a few hundred years. Species like the Volari took thousands of years to achieve the same. They're afraid of what we might become if left unchecked." Admiral Grant walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "We're not looking to dominate the Confederation. We just want fair treatment. Now we have proof of their conspiracy, and the galaxy is seeing firsthand what happens without human ingenuity and support." She turned back to face them. "In 3 more months, the Confederation will have no choice but to invite us back, but on our terms. No more stolen research. No more suppressed innovations. Equal standing with the elder races." Lisa crossed her arms. "And the suffering continues until then?" "No," Admiral Grant said firmly. "Phase 3 begins tomorrow. Humanitarian aid will start flowing through independent channels to the hardest-hit areas. We're not monsters, Ms. Donovan." Eric looked at the data he had risked his life to save. His quantum communication breakthrough could connect the entire galaxy instantly. No more delayed messages, no more isolated worlds. "Will my research be released when we return?" he asked. Admiral Grant smiled. Your research will be the centerpiece of our new relationship with the Confederation. The elder races tried to bury humanity's light. Now, it's time to let it shine. Karen Mills hadn't slept in 36 hours. The medical bay of Titan Station was filled beyond capacity. Patients lay on emergency cots in the hallways. The air smelled of antiseptic and fear. Dr. Mills, we need you in Section 4. Called. A Pelin nurse, her fur matted with exhaustion. Karen hurried through the crowded corridor, medical scanner in hand. 6 months had passed since humanity's withdrawal from the Confederation, and everything was falling apart faster than anyone had predicted. In Section 4, a group of Dravian miners lay moaning on beds. Their thick orange skin was covered in dark spots. Radiation poisoning. What happened? Karen asked the Pelin nurse. Mining accident in the Cygnus belt, the nurse explained. The safety systems failed. Again. Karen checked the first patient with her scanner. The damage was severe but treatable. She reached for the medication dispenser only to find it empty. We're out of anti-rad serum, the nurse said quietly. The last shipment never arrived. Karen closed her eyes briefly. As one of the few human doctors who had stayed behind, she had seen the Confederation's medical system slowly collapse. Basic medications were running out, equipment was breaking down, and no one seemed to know how to fix anything. I have an alternative treatment, Karen said finally. Get me the components listed here. She handed the nurse a datapad with a formula. It was a human treatment method, developed on Earth 50 years ago but never widely used in Confederation space. As the nurse hurried away, Karen heard a commotion at the main entrance of the medical bay. Raised voices echoed down the corridor, one of them distinctly Volari. This is unacceptable, the Volari official was shouting when Karen reached the entrance. How dare you prioritize Xylan patients over Volari citizens? The head administrator of the medical bay, a tall Centauri, was trying to calm the situation. Counselor Krexnar, I assure you we are treating all patients based on medical need, not species. Lies! Krexnar hissed, his red scales darkening with anger. I have reports that Volari wait while Xylan receive treatment first. Karen stepped forward. That's because the Xylan arrived with more severe injuries, Counselor. Medical triage is based on who will die first without treatment, not on political standing. The Volari turned to her, eyes narrowing. The human doctor. Still here despite your people's abandonment. I took an oath to heal, regardless of politics, Karen replied evenly. Something the Confederation Medical Authority seems to have forgotten. Krexnar's tail twitched dangerously. You dare criticize, I dare speak the truth, Karen interrupted. The Confederation Medical Authority has been withholding treatment protocols for years. Treatments that could have saved thousands of lives. The medical bay had gone quiet. Even the patients were watching the confrontation. That's a serious accusation, the Centauri administrator said carefully. Karen pulled a data chip from her pocket and inserted it into the main display terminal. Files appeared on the screen. Treatment protocols, medication formulas, surgical techniques. These are all human medical advances from the past century, she explained. Everyone was submitted to the Confederation Medical Authority. Everyone was under review for years or decades. Meanwhile, people died waiting for treatments that existed but weren't approved. Krexnar's scales had paled slightly. This is merely proper caution. Human methods are often untested, dangerous. Effective, Karen finished for him. They work, Counselor. And now that humans have withdrawn, your medical systems are failing because you never bothered to learn how they actually functioned. The Centauri administrator examined the files with growing horror. These treatments, some of these could have saved my brother last year. I know, Karen said quietly. I tried to get approval to use the treatment. The authority denied it. Before Krexnar could respond, the main communication screen activated. An emergency broadcast was coming through from the Confederation Council. Repeat, this is not a drill, a Zula announcer was saying. The Xylan fleet has moved into position around the Volari colony of Tessenda 4. Volari defense forces are mobilizing. All citizens are advised to. They wouldn't dare, Krexnar gasped, forgetting the medical dispute instantly. Karen watched as the Volari official rushed from the medical bay, already shouting into his communication device. The Centauri administrator looked at her with new understanding. How long have you known about the suppressed treatments? He asked. Since I arrived 5 years ago, Karen admitted. At first I thought it was bureaucratic slowness. Later, I realized it was deliberate. The administrator gestured to the emergency broadcast, which now showed Xylan and Volari ships facing off. And this conflict? Is this also part of humanity's plan? Karen shook her head. No. This is what happens when old rivalries aren't managed properly. Humans used to mediate between the Xylan and Volari. Without that diplomatic buffer, they fall back to ancient hatreds, the administrator finished. The Pellan nurse returned with the components Karen had requested. Together they began treating the Dravian miners, using the human protocol that had been kept from general use for decades. As they worked, more emergency broadcasts interrupted. The Xylan-Volari standoff was escalating. 3 other species had declared states of emergency. Trade routes through the central systems were completely shut down. By the end of her shift, Karen had treated 47 patients using methods that should have been standard practice years ago. As she finally sat down to rest, her private communication device buzzed. The message was brief but clear. Phase 3 complete. Phase 4 begins tomorrow. Be ready. Admiral Grant. Karen allowed herself a small smile. The breaking point had arrived sooner than expected. The Confederation was fracturing under its own weight, its flaws exposed by humanity's absence. The next day dawned with unprecedented news. The Confederation Council was in emergency session. On screens throughout Titan Station, the High Counselor of the Zula made a historic announcement. After careful consideration and in light of recent events, the Confederation Council has voted to formally request humanity's return to our galactic community, the ancient alien said, each word clearly painful to pronounce. We recognize that certain misunderstandings may have led to their departure. Karen watched the broadcast along with hundreds of other station residents. The medical bay had gone silent as everyone stared at the screens. Furthermore, the High Counselor continued, we propose a complete review of all policies regarding technology sharing and cultural integration. It has become apparent that some of our traditions may have hindered mutual progress. It was as close to an admission of guilt as the proud elder races would ever make. Karen's communication device buzzed again. Another message from Admiral Grant. Prepare for human return. The real work begins now. Karen looked around at the crowded medical bay, at the patients who had suffered because of pride and fear. She had stayed behind to help, to heal, to witness. Now she would be part of building something better. The galaxy had reached its breaking point, and from that break, something new would grow. The massive human diplomatic vessel Northern Star entered Confederation space with an escort of 20 warships. Captain Greg Foster stood on the bridge, watching as they approached Centauri Prime. 1 year after humanity's dramatic departure, they were returning. Captain, we're receiving welcome messages from over 50 species, reported his communications officer. Greg nodded. Acknowledge them all, especially the smaller species. The Northern Star dwarfed the alien ships that came to escort it to the Confederation headquarters. Its design was distinctly human, practical, sturdy, and with more weapons than a diplomatic vessel should need. Admiral Grant stood beside Greg, watching the approach with satisfaction. 1 year, she said quietly. Just as we planned. Not exactly. As planned, Greg replied. We didn't expect the Xylan-Volari conflict to escalate so quickly. The Admiral's face turned serious. No, that could have been disastrous. Thankfully, Dr. Mills and her team prevented the worst. As the Northern Star docked at Centauri Prime, Greg saw huge crowds gathered to watch. News of humanity's return had spread quickly. After a year of shortages, system failures, and rising tensions, many saw humans as saviors. The diplomatic team gathered at the main airlock. Eleanor Wells would again lead the human delegation, But this time, Ryan Carter stood at her right hand as chief negotiator. Behind them stood Eric Martinez, Lisa Donovan, Karen Mills, and representatives from Earth's major nations. Remember, Eleanor told them, we're not here for revenge. We're here for a new beginning. When the airlock opened, they were greeted by the full Confederation Council. The elder races, Volari, Tekken, Jula, looked uncomfortable. The younger species seemed relieved. Ambassador Wells, the Jula High Counselor, said formally, "The Galactic Confederation welcomes humanity's return." Eleanor nodded politely. "High Counselor, we are pleased to rejoin the galactic community, under the new terms we have proposed." The council chamber was larger than Ryan remembered. Every species had sent representatives. Even those who rarely participated in galactic politics had come to witness humanity's return. Eleanor took the central podium and activated a large display. Images appeared. Failed stations, collapsed trade routes, conflicts between species. "For 1 year, humanity walked away," she began. "We did so to demonstrate a simple truth that many refused to see. We are stronger together than apart." Yumao changed the display to show human innovations that had been suppressed. Eric's quantum communication system, Karen's medical treatments, and dozens more. For too long, certain elements within the Confederation acted to contain human progress, fearing what we might become. Eleanor continued. Instead of embracing our differences, they tried to control them. Krexnar, the Volari representative, shifted uncomfortably but remained silent. "Today marks a new beginning," Eleanor said. "The evidence we have gathered has been shared with all member species. The old policies of suppression and control must end." Ryan stepped forward with the new treaty. "The terms are simple: equal representation for all species, regardless of age, technology sharing without restriction, joint colonization efforts, and a new council structure that prevents any group from controlling the others." The High Counselor looked at the treaty for a long moment. Then, slowly, he pressed his hand to the document in the traditional sign of agreement. "The Confederation accepts these terms," he said formally. One by one, representatives from other species came forward to add their agreement. Last came Krexnar of the Volari, his scales dark with suppressed emotion. "The Volari," he said stiffly, "accept the new order." When the signing was complete, the chamber erupted in sounds of celebration. Species that had been rivals for centuries found themselves united in hope for a better future. Greg watched from the side of the room as humans mingled with aliens, rebuilding connections that had been broken. Eric was already deep in conversation with scientists from multiple worlds. Karen was arranging medical knowledge transfers. Lisa was organizing new trade agreements. Admiral Grant joined him, a small smile on her face. "Mission accomplished," Greg said. "Phase 1 accomplished," she corrected. "Humanity has its rightful place now. Next comes the real work, building something better than before." Outside the council chamber, citizens of 100 worlds watched the proceedings on public screens. The message was spreading throughout the galaxy. Humans had returned and everything was about to change. The galaxy had held its breath when humans walked away. Now it could exhale, and together, they could all breathe easier.